Everybody ready?
Yep. Let's go.
Ahsoka!
4 Midwest Guys presents Star Wars Rebels HQ.
Battles leave scars. Some you can't see. Holocron.
I'm afraid it's changing them.
I will never let my friends get hurt again.
Your anger gives you strength.
Governor Price, these rebels have proven particularly stubborn. How do you intend to solve this problem?
I need someone who sees a bigger picture.
To defeat an enemy, you must know them, not simply their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art.
I must become more powerful.
Split the treasure.
Oh, that's a classic.
One last glorious day in the Grand Army of the Republic.
Jedi and Sith, the light and the dark.
They'll be the architects of their own destruction.
The key to destroying the Sith.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Star Wars Rebels HQ. Tonight we will be reviewing Episode 8, The Iron Squadron. With me today is my brother Aaron.
Hey, how's it going, man?
How's it going, dude?
I'm alright.
It's just me and you, man.
Yep.
Han and Chewie. Mr. Eichenbauer could not be with us tonight. He had to do some mandatory overtime, so sorry you had to work, B, but we know you're here as a Force Ghost with us, so... Alright, so let's get into Season 3, Episode 8, The Iron Squadron. This one kind of opens up. The rebels are coming to Mycapa, I believe, or Mycopa.
I don't
Mycopa
recall.
Cabana. I'm not sure what the name of the... Mycapa, I think. It's the name
I don't remember it either.
The name of the planet. And they're there to rescue some dissidents that went off the planet before the Empire comes to take the planet over.
It kind of begins with them kind of opening up on them, like rescuing another carrier, right? Or another ship of some sort?
Yeah, basically they come across this YT-2400, which we'll get into a little bit later. And it's the Iron Squadron, a group of 3 little bratty kids that are taking on a transport ship.
Yeah, one ends up being, the nephew of Commander Soto?
Yes, his name is Martin.
Yeah.
This is his name. So we got Sato's brother's kid with different last name. So
yeah.
I don't know. Could be like
brother by marriage, maybe.
Yeah, maybe, or
brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law, who knows, or like me and you, just have different dads, same mom, kind of thing. Who knows? Possibly. So, hard to say. But anyway, so I thought it was kind of interesting how the Iron Squadron was a little inventive here. They were using actual just cargo, bombing the Imperial transport with cargo vessels.
Yeah, when it's on the smaller ships, it works out all right, but you see it later on, and it's like tossing a rock at a tank eventually. Kind of, yeah, but... don't get me wrong, like, for kids, like, it's as inventive as you could expect of them, but it's... I don't know, I found it kind of a weird dynamic. I kind of liked it. It kind of reminded me of, like, a World War II dive bomber, in a way, they're, kind of... He literally dives at the ship and then pulls up and lets the cargo go right into the transport. Yeah.
This is the gravity of the planet.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things, like, they're just so insistent on fighting, and then you just see them using these kind of basic weapons, and it's, it's improvising, but it's only taking out, a small little chunk of a fleet at a time, and it's clearly not that effective against anything that goes much bigger.
No, I mean, it's probably effective against TIE fighters and, like, these cargo vessels, maybe. Anything bigger.
Like things that aren't meant to fight other ships too heavily.
No. But to these kids, up to this point, this is all they think the Empire is. They don't think it gets much
bigger. Well, that's
bigger.
the thing I find weird about this episode. Like, these are the remnant of the Iron Brigade. Like, there was legitimate brigade that actually did fight.
The
and
Iron
they're just,
Squadron,
like,
his dad, yeah.
Yeah, like, they should have seen some of this up close, right? Like, they should have seen the comparison, or unless the Iron Squadron's really just, like, patrolling, and that's all they did.
Well, maybe they were wiped out by Thrawn,
maybe.
And, he kept his kids at home, and they just
decided
to take up the mantle and we're fighting the Empire, And
they just found a ship and decided to take off one day.
Which would explain why he thinks a transport is a Star Destroyer, and
yeah,
why he thinks a light cruiser, finally a Star Destroyer.
Yeah, every ship you come across is like, it's a big ship, yay, Star Destroyer.
Finally. No, not really.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the running jokes, and it's kind of funny, but it almost already emphasizes how annoying that character is.
Kind of. I mean, they're just inexperienced. I mean, they see it's a very microcosm of what they think the Empire is. The Empire is very vast. They don't figure that out until the end, really.
Yeah.
Just how big what they're really up against, per se. But to them, it's just a bunch of kids. It's probably more of a game, really, than it is reality.
Well, for his friends, it does seem that way.
Yeah.
Like, you see, later on in the episodes where Ezra's kind of convinced them, he has that actually kind of interesting speech where it's talking about, it's not important just how to decide to fight, but how you fight as well.
Precisely. Has he finally learned Yoda's lesson? Because that's what Yoda said.
Yeah. It is actually one of the few growing points for Ezra, and probably the few things that makes the argument for this actually having anything that isn't just a filler episode.
Yeah, I thought so, because I was like, aha, finally.
Yeah.
I don't think he's realized it yet, but that's exactly what Yoda was telling him. He says it's not how Jedi win, it's how they go about winning.
Yeah.
He basically said the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. And he kind of gets through his friends that this isn't just a game, and then you have whatever his name is, Sato's nephew, who's
Martin.
Martin.
Yeah.
And he's just like, nope, I'm going to take this thing down. It is the whale, and I will destroy it.
But they really are just a bunch of kids, though. I mean, even Zeb's goes, sounds like a bunch of Ezras. Let's get out of here. I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just, and to get on the ship, their ship's in complete disrepair. I mean,
that, and they even seem almost hesitant to let Chopper help fix up the ship or help improve light speed. It's just no, he's got it. Don't get me wrong, we know the thing. It's messy how we like it. You're fine.
Yeah, it's almost like a kids' clubhouse, or maybe a like a college frat house, maybe ship.
I'm not sure if they were intoxicated enough for it to be a frat
Well, maybe
house,
not intoxicated, but really, when you think about it, I mean, they were more interested in eating than listening to Hera. They wanted to eat their grilled cheese or whatever that was.
Yeah, I have no idea what it was.
But
the cookie-like thing.
Yeah, and then Hera's all military. She's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to debrief you," and he's like, "Well, how brief's it going to be? Because I want to eat."
Yeah, it just kind of gives that impression of just clubhouse out in the stick sort of thing.
Kind of, it was just like he was just being like a kid would be, disrespectful to their parents kind of thing. The guy definitely had that vibe to it. So they really are just true rebellious youth, I guess. It's probably the best way to describe the Iron Squadron so far. So, as we mentioned before, Martin is June Commander Sato's nephew. We learned that the Iron Squadron was his brother's designation, which is kind of cool. So it makes me wonder just how many squadrons do you think are out there? Because we now have Phoenix Squadron, we now have Iron Squadron.
There'd be several, right?
There could be more, yeah. Which I'm kind of cool with that idea.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of having, well, here's Phoenix Squadron, this is the Rebel Cell Phoenix Squadron, here's Iron Squadron, here's
I imagine
Dark Lighter Squadron, whatever.
These are a lot of squadrons that probably work a little separately and are uniting as we get closer to, episode 4. And that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, we expected to see more out of the Inquisitors from last season, and really haven't seen any this season at all. So
I've been kind of thinking about that. I think that was the whole purpose of whatever. When they went to Malachor, that was the end of the Inquisitors, maybe.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just you looked at how the naming system was there, we assumed there was multiple more Inquisitors,
maybe,
and they actually were kind of interesting villains. Don't get me wrong, you gave them shit for how the design was a little bit, but
yeah,
I mean, you had the one lady more or less look like Cobra Commander. You have to kind of make fun of her a little bit.
Well, yeah,
but at the same time, they were a bit more interesting, villains, henchmen-like villains, but, I was hoping to see more of them.
We might yet again. The one thing that so far that they have not answered so far this season, and I thought by now they would have, is why Vader is not pursuing them.
Yeah.
Where, if I knew there was Jedi out there, I'd probably be out to kill them.
It seems something the Emperor and Vader had been very interested in up to this point, and then all of a sudden it's just, oh, he's got it.
Yeah.
Let's just let our military handle this.
And I've heard that, through interviews before the season started, that was a question that they were going to answer. And so far, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Now, whether that's Rogue One, maybe, that they're preoccupied with what's going on
at the same time, though, like, if we're already, like, in Rogue One territory, then I feel like the timeline's not really meshing as well.
You think we're still a couple months away from Rogue One?
I would assume, like, you look at Rebels, like, it's at least a year away from where Rogue One should be, which takes place, like, weeks heading up before, like, Episode 4?
Yeah, it's literally, like, it ends basically 10 minutes before Episode 4 starts, the original Star Wars.
So, I mean, if it's one of those sort of things, like, I feel like we're at least a year out for that, but just because you would expect, like the rebellion to be slightly more united by the time you get to the point of Rebels or
maybe,
Rogue One.
I don't know. I just always thought that I always had it in my mind that they would use Rebels to help build up Rogue One, and so far it kind of looks like they're not. And to me, that feels like a lost opportunity almost. Because you have this show, you have the same era.
I could see it being that sort of thing, but at the same time,
of course, you could also build Rebels off of it, too.
Yeah, you don't want to throw off the timeline for how you have envisioned Rebels for this one kind of standalone film.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like, if you want to spin off it or, like, do that down the line to where it actually, like, kind of works with your timeline, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But you don't want to just, like, skip your story, like, 3 years ahead of time just because, that's a good marketing opportunity.
I guess. Like I said, I've always envisioned it that way. Like, I always envisioned Rebels would get us up to a certain point. They would hint at Rogue One. And then you would hear them mention what happened in Rogue One.
Yeah.
In passing, and also what happened in the original Star Wars.
The thing is, like, you look at, like, say, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They really tried to go that route with it.
Yeah.
And you can make the argument by the time it kind of threw off a lot of their storylines, even within the first, like, season.
Yeah, I think they were kind of forced to keep themselves on air, but yeah.
Yeah, they clearly were, but it's one of those things, like, it made it very difficult for that show to kind of keep a very coherent storyline within the first couple, like, season or so.
Yeah.
I don't know, it might have done better as it went along.
It's done better, yeah.
But I can speak from just the first season alone, like, it clearly, it went out of its way to kind of market itself towards the film, and I think it kind of made the first season worse for the wearer because of it.
It could be. We'll see. I guess only time will tell for sure. So, but getting back to the episode, I think it seemed like Ezra really wants to help them because I think he sees a little bit of himself in them. Because these are kids; they're basically from his generation, right?
Yeah, they're maybe 2 or 3 years younger than him.
Maybe tops, and and so it's like him and Sabine's thing, and and that's why.
Yeah, they're just kind of less experienced than him or Sabine is. So, yeah, and I mean, he also kind of lost his parents. Like, he understands that. I'm sure there's a lot he can relate to in this scenario.
Oh, sure, because even he says, "Yeah, I had to abandon my home.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to abandon yours. I've done it. I had to do it. I'm fine.
Yeah,
I'm still fighting the Empire.
Yeah, you have to adapt. That is kind of the situation, sadly,
and that's where he." That's when he throws out the Yoda line without it being Yoda's line, so to speak. But
yeah, kind of like his finally understanding and interpreting it in his own kind of words.
Oh, yeah, because he's trying to get through to him the whole time. I mean, he gets Sabine to play along, say, you know what I mean, right? Sabine kind of elbows her. She's like, oh, yeah, I think I can fix their hyperdrive, and blah, 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 even though they obviously don't use it. But, yeah, I don't know. It's like he keeps trying all the way up to the last second, and finally Sabine's like, you have orders, you have to leave, and he finally gives in to it, to the orders. But I don't know. It was just interesting to see Ezra trying to play the mentor.
Yeah, like it puts him in a different role.
Yeah, it's like he's Kanan to these kids, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, but
peer, but still.
If you look at even how the Jedi have their system set up, like, becoming a teacher and, like, passing on that knowledge, that's part of continuing your own education in that system as well.
Right.
Like, it's expected that you eventually get your own apprentice and that you pass that along. That's part of the development phase for you.
Right.
And, I mean, this kind of follows along that same path, if not, as directly, just, it's leading to that point. Because, Ezra's still kind of an apprentice, sort of, or trainee, however you want to word it, since the official Jedi system isn't really in place, but it's part of him growing in a way.
Yeah, I think so. I really liked them, doing that in this episode. It was nice to see Ezra grow. It was a growing point for me in his character development. So. And then especially when he throws out the Yoda line, I was like, it's not how you win, it's how you go about winning. It was like, aha! So finally, the light bulbs come on.
Had to fit that in somewhere.
All right, so let's talk about Thrawn and Admiral Constantine for a second here. I don't know yet. We see Thrawn kind of throw him off to the wolves, so to speak. He sets him up for failure, I guess.
It really does play out like how he treated the other admiral on Hera's planet. Like
or the general, whatever he was, commander. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it actually has a lot of the very same sort of kind of situations almost.
I just wonder if it's because is it Thrawn's ego that drives him to do this, or is it because he really thinks they are inferior and therefore he has to prove it in order to get rid of them and get them out of his way?
Honestly, I don't even think he's doing it because he feels they're inferior as much as he just views them as useful as tools.
Okay.
Like he's just setting up the scenario where he's learning about his enemy, learning about how his own, troops under him operate.
Yeah.
It's an educational experience no matter how it turns out.
Okay.
And even when he ends up talking to Commander Soto later on, it kind of comes across that way a little.
So you think he was just using Constantine as just a pawn in the greater game?
Yeah. I mean, that's how he seemed to treat pretty much anyone on his side so far.
So far, yeah. I can see that. I agree with that. I was just trying... I don't know. There's part of me that thinks he knows that this guy sucks, essentially, and that he's just looking for a reason to make him fail so he can push him away.
Like weeding out incompetence.
Yeah, weeding out the incompetence so he can bring somebody else in that's a little bit better.
That's a good possibility as well. I mean, you want to surround yourself
But I like your theory, though. I like how you say he's using his own people as pawns just as much as he uses the rebels.
He is... I mean, as we've seen Thrawn has been presented to us, is kind of that kind of bigger picture manipulator. Having a very chess-like way of approaching this isn't really that far off from how the character is shown to us.
That's true. That's true.
The only thing I really have a downside about this is it just seems so familiar to what we've seen Thrawn do already. Like, it doesn't really build upon him that much.
Yeah, I guess. I'm still waiting for Thrawn to...
Like, he seems like he's a very underdeveloped character so far.
I think they're slow playing him maybe a little too slowly. I'd like to see him actually strike at the rebels just a little bit.
Well, I'm not really against them playing it slow with him. It's just, if you are going to have him have like a scene here or there, I kind of would like it to kind of build on the character a little. And whereas this really seems like it's kind of putting him in the same spot it did, a few episodes back. Like, if he's just going through, like, this is Thrawn scene where he does action A, and this is Thrawn scene where he does action A. Like, if that's the only thing we see him do over and over up until, like, mid-season, like, I think it's underutilizing him.
I agree it's underutilized. Like I said, I think they're probably slow playing him a little too much. They're using him to hint at his history. We'll talk about that more when we get to the end of the podcast about his history with Sato and what we think that's all about. But yeah, I agree with you. I would like to see him a little bit more action.
Well, even if you weren't going with the action aspect of it, even if you were showing him in like almost a situation dealing with like his underlings and showing more of like a personality sort of thing. I feel like you could show the character in ways that you haven't already shown him that builds up his character and intelligence, or even his appreciation for art and artifacts.
I was just going to say it would have been nice to see him looking at some artifacts or something while he's talking to Constantine, and baiting him essentially.
Yeah. I feel like even if you want to go with a slow pace, like, you can show personality in ways that they haven't. Yeah. Because you've really kind of made him kind of a one-trick pony so far. Well, and that's going to change down the line, clearly.
Right.
But so far, he hasn't really done a whole lot outside of just study.
Yeah, it's true. Right now, it's more of a cat playing with his prey or stalking his prey from afar, maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of studying, yes. But yeah, I agree with you, though. I think, a little bit more would be nice. A little bit more character development. But.
I don't know, and maybe we'll see that in another episode or two. And I'm assuming either by the time we hit mid-season or just slightly past it, we'll definitely start seeing that roll around.
I would like to see him start playing chess with the Rebels directly at this point, at least with Phoenix Squadron.
Yeah, instead of just being in that research phase.
Yeah, I would like to see him to at least start playing a few chess pieces against them, just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Even if he's still studying them while he's doing it, that's what chess is about. But nevertheless. All right, so let's dig into the YT-2400 here. This ship has some history in the Legends, so to speak, Star Wars Legends field with
the books that are no longer
canon. It is very heavily attached to Shadows of the Empire series.
I think you mentioned that on this podcast a couple times, right? That's even like one of the things. Is it Thrawn's associated with, or one of the other characters we've seen?
Well, Thrawn is part of the. He's come out of Legends as well, but he's not in Shadows of the Empire.
Okay,
he's actually in the sequel books, but after Jedi. But he's now been placed in Rebels timeline. But now this YT-2400 is actually the same ship in the Shadows of the Empire series, which takes place between the first Star Wars, or aka A New Hope, and Empire Strikes Back. Okay, and it's about this character called Dash Rendar, and Dash is kind of a more. The best way to describe Dash, real quick, because I don't want to go real deep into Dash tonight. Is he's kind of like he's a more devious Han Solo.
Okay, so Dash is around the universe smuggling.
He's a big time smuggler, big time pilot. Like he's like Han Solo, except where Han Solo has a good side and a heart. Dash is more about it for the money. Okay, that's kind of his. That's a real very brief view. There's a big history about.
So kind of like if you didn't assume Han Solo was kind of a nice guy, sort of thing.
Yeah, basically he's like an elite family. Something a bunch of crap happens. His family's outed by the Emperor, cast aside, and now he's forced to become this smuggler, and he's out for himself, kind of thing.
So anyway, fallen aristocrat sort of guy.
Kind of, yeah. That's going very. I know there's people out there screaming at us through the podcast right now, but that's a very brief description.
Well, they probably read the books, whereas I haven't. So,
but anyway, the main ship that Dash flies is the YT-2400. Which is the same thing we see Iron Squadron flying. Now, as you know, as I've often talked about, and especially in our Holocrons of Fate episode, I talked about my theory that how Ezra saw the key to destroying the Sith when they merged the Jedi and the Sith holocron, and how he saw the twin suns and all that.
Okay.
And how I thought that the key to destroying the Sith was Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And how I thought that
because you assume it's Tatooine.
Tatooine with the twin suns, etc.
So you don't assume like it's Obi-Wan or you don't think it's like what Maul was seeing.
I think Maul saw Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yes. Okay. I think that's why he went off all crazy, like he's alive, and like mad and happy.
Yeah, it's like time. I get to kill him again. Hooray!
Hooray! Yeah. But I think that's what Maul saw. But no, what I think. So my whole theory that I explained in that podcast, and I'll explain again briefly, is I think Ezra is eventually going to figure out who Luke Skywalker is. He's going to figure out that he is the key to destroying the Sith, because he ultimately is. And I think that Ezra will become...
Well, if you don't count the Sith as part of just larger Dark Force users, yeah.
Yeah. So Ezra is going to want to protect Luke Skywalker. Dash Rendar in Shadows of the Empire is hired by Princess Leia to basically, from afar, keep Luke Skywalker safe. So... Now you have that theory, and now they throw in the YT-2400 into it, and this is only feeding my theory.
Well, in that they took a ship that exists within that universe.
And granted, and then there's a couple things. They never tell you the name of the ship.
Okay.
It's just a YT-2400 throughout the entire episode. Nobody says it's the Outrider, the Outrider, which is the name of Dash Rendar's ship.
Okay.
So you got that, number one. Also,
so you assume Ezra's just going to be commandeering the ship down the road? Is that part of the theory?
I really think Season 4, or the back half of Season 3, maybe as early as the back half of Season 3, is going to be a version of Shadow of the Empire. Okay. In some way, shape, or form. I think, and I'm going to bring up a big nasty word in nerdom and fandom, it's called retcon, is the name of the word. I think they are slowly going to retcon and bring back in elements of the Shadows of the Empire series.
I mean, we've known they've been doing that for the extended or expanded universe for a while now.
Right.
I mean, Disney more or less said that ahead of time. Like, it's pretty much anything going forward is being retconned. I mean, even like past events that may have been settled in some fans' minds,
or expanded upon, like Rogue One is an expansion of they got the plans of the Death Star. Well, here's how.
Yeah.
Okay, but I think that's where they're going with this, and I think this is just another piece of the puzzle to me.
Possibly. I mean, if that's something Disney feels like it's useful to kind of bring back into it, they might.
I think they're trying to, again, they're trying to bring back in those Legends fans to feel hurt and betrayed because they read all these books all these years.
And now Disney's just like, and that's useless.
And that's it. So this is their way of playing it back in. Granted, they can do whatever they want. They can twist it. They can turn it.
At the same time, though, there's still going to be people that are look at the retcons and be like, the expanded universe was better.
Well, sure. You're always going to have that element. But the fact that they keep throwing bones at them, the fact that they brought Thrawn in already. So to me, I kind of see this coming.
If I was a fan of the older series, I think that could be interpreted either way. Either like this character you took to be like the second coming of Darth Vader is now just like a Disney show villain, or it's cool they're introducing him, or he got downgraded. You could view it either way.
I don't think he got downgraded yet. We just haven't seen Thrawn the full effect of Thrawn yet.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, if you were a fan of like those books and you never really got into Rebels, like you might not necessarily enjoy that. That's where you bring him back. You'd want him to come back for like one of the feature film sort of things.
And he still might.
Yeah.
They can go anywhere. They can pretty much do whatever they want with him. And there's a book coming out as soon as Rebels ends called Thrawn. That's only going to expand on
this season of Rebels, or
this season. Yeah, it comes out in April, and usually by April, Rebels is done. Usually, it was last year.
Yeah.
So, but anyway. So you got that, and you also, what I think is interesting, because there's what our show used to be called, which was Star Wars Rebels Recon, which is the official Star Wars after show or behind the scene
created
podcast.
issues. Yeah.
Even Pablo Hidalgo, who's the keeper of the Star Wars knowledge, the Holocron, Holokeeper as they call him, even he's downplaying it, which I think is funny that they went out of their way to downplay it.
Downplay the books?
The downplay the ship.
Oh, okay.
Because even Pablo's like, oh yeah, the YT-2400, that's kind of like the minivan of the Star Wars galaxy. So there's a lot of them out there, and
blah.
I
mean, you can make that argument, except I don't think that's actually really come up in most any film or.
Well, it's I can tell you the other places it appears outside of Shadows of the Empire. It's actually in Star Wars, the special edition.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see it like flying off in the distance when you get into Mos Eisley. Anyway, but other than that, as far as I know, it doesn't pop up anywhere else. So, to me, the fact that they are going out of their way, because they went out of their way to downplay. They even brought up Dash Rendar's name. They even said this is the minivan of the Star Wars galaxy. All this stuff just tells me I might be onto something.
Well, you might not necessarily refer to it as a minivan if it's something that's used for like smuggling and has to move very quickly through checkpoints and such.
And that's what this thing is. This thing is a light. How is it that they describe it? It's a light smuggling vessel. What do you call it? Transport.
Yeah.
But it has the ability to be upgraded with stronger engines, and it has a lot of cargo space for better weapons and stuff like that. So
it can be very multifunctional.
It's a mini Falcon, and it's Carillion, just like the Falcon is. Falcon, I think, is a YT-120. I think
it'll be corrected later.
Yeah, they'll correct me out there. They'll scream at me, but yeah. So it's got that feel to it. So
okay.
Anyway, I'm just.
I know. So you don't actually expect them to reintroduce Dash into this show?
Not yet. If they do, it'll be down the line.
Okay, so like you're expecting Ezra to take his place more so than them actually to introduce the character.
Or
itself.
they might bring Dash in eventually, and then Ezra teams up with him for a little bit or something.
Yeah,
for a few episodes. Hard to say. They can go either way. They can go any way they want with it. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay,
see where it goes. But anyway, so that's a little bit, yet another expansion of my Shadows of the Empire theory in Rebels for end of season 3 or season 4.
I don't know, possibly, man.
It could happen. All right, so now that we've gone on a nice little tangent, Let's.
There's worse theories to comment on. We're not talking about jet fuel or anything.
Well, let's not talk about Snoke either. So, all right. So,
you don't want to go into the Darth Jar Jar theories?
No, God, no. All right. Misa back. All right. So,
character redeemed.
Let's talk about the end of the podcast, or the end of this. We'll get to the end of the podcast. The end of the episode.
They kind of coincide a little bit.
Yeah. The rescue of Mart is what I like to call it. It's just, we kind of see that Mart finally learns what a Star Destroyer is, kind of like we talked about earlier. It's like, it's just kind of like, oh. Oh, crap.
That's way bigger than a cargo ship.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a coming of age kind of in a way. He's learned just how vast the Empire is and how small and insignificant he is.
Yeah.
Compared to it.
And how insignificant he will be in the major storyline. At least I'm hoping.
We'll see. They could develop him over time.
Maybe.
I kind of like the idea of it. He learns the hard way. He can't take on the Empire by himself.
Yeah.
He put himself out there. He gets trapped. They have to rescue him.
They pretty much convince him, or try to convince him, hey, we need to get away. And he's like, oh, okay. Take my friends, go. I'm going to try to destroy this thing by throwing a stone at it.
Well, yeah, I'm going to take on the Empire by myself.
Yeah.
Obviously, he can't, right? So.
And then they more or less just use him to trap his friend, or set bait for his friends.
Set for bait to bring his friends.
Because they said he was, sitting there for 30 minutes or so?
I don't know if they ever gave a time for it, but yeah. I thought they did. He was sitting there for a little while.
Yeah.
Until they came back. So. But I think the most interesting part of the end of the episode is we learn that there might just be a little bit of history between Commander Soto and Thrawn.
Yeah, it's actually probably the more interesting part of the show, and even it's kind
brief. It's very brief.
Yeah. So maybe Soto was part of the war that Thrawn got upgraded in or promoted in.
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know if it was the same battle that made him a Grand Admiral, but it may have promoted him, to Admiral or something.
Yeah.
But there seems to me, it was only basically one line from Thrawn to Soto, which was, I was wondering what it would take to bring you back. And, and basically Sato is very cool with him and doesn't really give him anything.
Yeah.
And just says, until next time.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Which really is probably the best course of action.
Right.
It's one of those things if you're ever, in a prison cell and you're being interrogated, just wait for your lawyer, sort of thing.
Well, and to me, that might not only did that line feel like Thrawn gloating at Sato.
Yeah.
But it also, because the way Sato responded to him makes me think that he knows Thrawn pretty well.
Yeah.
And he knows not to give Thrawn anything.
Yeah. Well,
that he's been up against him before. Probably lost, but and he may have even killed his brother. I don't know. What do you think? You think it's possible?
Possible. I mean, to be honest, there's so many people that could have taken down the Iron Brigade or whatever. It's really kind of up in the air, but I mean, you generally see it how high Thrawn has gotten up in the Empire. Yeah, I'm sure he took out quite a few people on his way.
I'm sure he has. But it seemed
personal in some way. Yeah,
very personal. I don't know. How do you think that's going to play out as we go forward?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's unlikely you're going to put Sato in a position where he's passionate, screaming for vengeance sort of thing. It seems a little out of character, but you develop the character more, maybe.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I think it's going to be... I like the idea of putting Sato up against Thrawn. I think it...
Well, we've already kind of put him up against Hera as well, and
yeah.
You kind of put Thrawn up against multiple people as the battle kind of...
But it
dictates.
It gives Sato some purpose. Up till now, he's just been kind of the commander in the background that Hera reports to.
Yeah, really. It's a very one-dimensional character so far.
So I kind of like the idea of...
Expanding on
that, and now if he has history with Thrawn, and then how he teaches everybody else who Thrawn is and what to expect, and how he's personally lost maybe to Thrawn, and
it'd definitely be an expansion of the character that I think could work out really well. if it's done well anyway, of course, like anything, but it definitely does make him a more dimensional, kind of better built character.
Yeah. I like I said, I just think it's a great use of Sato.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because he did kill his brother, and now all he has left is his kid, who's now part of his squadron, I guess, so to speak. So I like it. I like the idea.
Yeah, it could be interesting going forward, depending on how much they play on it.
Oh yeah. I think it makes it just another level of storytelling and the vastness of it. So. All right. Well, I think we've dissected this thing pretty thoroughly, so let's just get right into final thoughts and grades. All right, Aaron, I will let you have final thought first.
In terms of grades, I'll probably give this a D.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, okay. For me, this is probably worse than like any of the mid-season like kind of fillers from last season. Like, this actually might be like one of the more boring ones of like the series. Yeah, for me this really is.
Oh wow!
Like, I actually had a hard time kind of paying attention after we hit like the halfway point for this episode.
Okay.
Like, this is one of those episodes where it's like, it seems you have a couple points that like the beginning seems kind of repetitive, even towards the end it gets a little repetitive. Like, there's a lot of things that are really similar to elements we've seen a lot this season. And then you have Sato's nephew and his friends who are actually kind of annoying as characters, so you never really connect or get interested in them.
Yeah.
The highlight to it is like just you see a little bit of Thrawn, you see a little bit of like how Ezra's grown and being in that different situation, but outside of that, there's not really a lot this episode has going for it.
Okay, so would you say it's even worse than the Purgil, dare I say?
Oh no, I love the Squales. I love the Squale episode.
I hated the Squales.
Oh no, I would watch the Squales 5 times before I'd watch this one again. Easily. They should bring the Squales back. I need that. Okay. For me, that would be a better episode if this episode just ended with just Squales just jumping from hyperspace, just ramming shit. It'd be awesome. I'd love that way more.
Oh man! All right, well,
I think that's we have very different reaction to the Purgils or Squales.
We do, yes. Squales for me is the low point of the series.
No, for me this is this episode.
Wow.
No,
wow.
Like I love Squales.
Oh,
Squales were awesome.
I hate Squales. Hate them.
Don't get me wrong; they are a weird little monkey wrench in the Star Wars universe, but
slightly, yeah.
No, like really, like. They are really a big shift to the canon for Star Wars, right?
Dude, it's like, it's like somebody from Greenpeace invaded the Rebels and decided, we need to make a Greenpeace episode.
No, but like, you have an animal that's distinctly responsible for jumping into hyperspace and inspiring other civilizations to do that. That's a weird addition to canon. Not just that, but like, they're actually mentioned that occasionally people will hit them in hyperspace.
To me, it's more, that episode for me, just not to go off on a tangent, was more Star Trek than Star Wars. That was a Star Trek episode, dude. With lightsabers.
Outside of the last couple of films, I never really got into Star Trek. So
yeah, for me that was totally Star Trek, not Star Wars. But anyway.
I don't know. Like, to me, the Squales were way more interesting. They added way more to the Star Wars universe than this episode does.
Squales, fuck the Squales. All right, so my grade.
I think they might be a bit big for you, man.
Anyway, hey. You never know. Anyway, all right. So, so what would I grade this? I would actually give this probably C+ or B-. Only because number one and foremost, it feeds my theory, my Shadows of the Empire theory.
All right. So if it didn't have that ship, though, like
if it didn't have that ship, then I'd probably give it a solid C to C+. You still got to see Ezra grow. You got to see him, even though I don't think, like I said, he's realized it yet, he's restating Yoda's entire principle for him. I like the idea of the history between Thrawn and Sato a lot. I think that's going to be a great dynamic to build off of in the future. And I even like the kids in the Iron Squadron, even though they're a little annoying and obviously incredibly naive. But it's kind of cool to see, you know.
Yeah, but even like their droid's kind of shitty. Like R3 was it?
Well, yeah, he doesn't know what he's doing. Yeah. None of those guys know what they're doing, though. He fits the rest of that crew. Yeah. They're completely lost when it comes to what they're doing and Yeah, they're just a bunch of kids. And yeah, it's a kid. At the end of the day, it's still a kid's show, and that's probably why they're doing it. But still, I think it's kind of a neat thing, and I love the idea of naming different squadrons. I like the idea that you have Phoenix Squadron. I like the idea they had Iron Squadron at one time, and may have again sometime, and that there's other call signs out there. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if you had like an entire, army that was all like consider themselves part of one squadron, like it'd be confusing really quickly.
Oh yeah.
You'd have to. A squadron would more or less be limited to what, like 12 people max?
If that, I mean, it varies. Usually, a squadron is a group of ships. Usually.
Well, I'm just saying, like anything beyond a certain point, like you would lose connection between like pilots. So in order for like group cohesiveness, you'd actually have to limit to like an X amount of numbers.
Well, it'd be like I belong to the USS Eisenhower. Well, I belong to the John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
The different battle groups and the aircraft carriers and stuff. It's kind of the same thing. So, but it wasn't horrible. It wasn't the best of the series, but it satisfied me enough. So,
all right, but so for you, this episode's better than Squales.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm not a lover of Squales.
Was there any other episode that this episode beats?
That this episode beats this? It beats Squales. I think it beats.
It's on the low end of this show.
Yeah, I think it beats some of the early episodes, like season 1 episodes, where they're just doing some character building. Like there's an episode. My daughter loves this episode still to this day, but there's an episode where it's just Ezra and Zeb. And they just go off on like a side adventure through the town and steal a TIE fighter.
Yeah.
This episode,
I actually remember that episode. That actually is a good episode.
Yeah, to me, this episode we just watched is better than that.
But I would disagree with that as well.
stuff like
if
that.
you've had to watch the episode 20 times, maybe I could see where it gets old.
Yeah, so, Gabby loves it. But, hey, so, yeah. Okay, so where can you find 4 Midwest Guys? Well, you can go to google.com and type in the number 4 Midwest Guys. There you'll find our iTunes page. So if you really like this podcast, make sure you subscribe to it. You can find our YouTube page there as well. If you like us on or subscribe to our feed on YouTube.
We were doing okay on YouTube in terms of like views in comparison to like some more downloads.
Yeah, we had over 100 views on not the past episode, but for episode 6, our episode 6 review. Did really well. We had over 100 views.
Yeah, it's pretty good for us, actually.
It is. And we really want to thank our YouTube listeners out there, literally, and viewers, I guess I should say. But we also have a Facebook page. Like us on our Facebook page. We also put other stuff other than our podcast up there. We have a Twitter account. You can find our Twitter account there. We're also on OneCast. We're also on Stitcher. We're out there on just about every other podcast device possible. If we're not, let me know. I'll make sure we're at it. The only thing I'll tell you about the Google thing is there's a site called podcast.com. That, for whatever reason, they haven't updated our feed on there since last season. So avoid that. But everything else, make sure you check out, like us, subscribe to us, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or, again, our YouTube account, our iTunes account, Stitcher, whatever. Join us, listen to us, because we have a lot of other stuff. We have the Marvel DC Kings, which we've been away for the last few weeks because there's really not much to talk about because the shows have been on hiatus.
Going on hiatus. Plus, we have holidays, work stuff,
right?
All the fun things.
So we got that. We got Rogue One coming up. I've got a mini series on that. I binged watched Stranger Things in one night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I definitely want to talk about that. And as well as the entire Defenders series up so far. I just finished Luke Cage as well. So there's a lot of stuff. We'll probably do all that after the first of the year. So there's a lot of stuff out there that we've done. There's a lot of stuff we've done in the past that you would want to check out. Past Rebels episodes, past Marvel DC Kings. We did a whole thing on Star Wars. We did a 4-part miniseries leading up to Episode 7.
Yeah, just did Doctor Strange thing a few weeks back.
We did our Doctor Strange Revelations, which was really well accepted as well. So get out there, check us out, because we've got a lot of really cool stuff. So Aaron, just want to thank you for joining me, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Great discussion tonight. And for Bwilly saying, may the Force be with you always.